in the EV battery world, the base necessary component is graphite. Yeah. And nobody talks about it.
There are only about 10 notable graphite projects in North America of any decent enough size that could actually make an impact in the supply deficit that's looming and looming fast. And the continent probably needs 40.
Hi, everybody. It's Jean-Michel for Invercio. And today on the podcast, I am with James Cross from EPower Resources. How you doing, James?
Fine, thanks. And you?
I'm doing all right. Enjoying this really nice, end of summer temperature. Still in flip-flops, still wearing my shorts, so it's all good, all good. And so, James, tell me a little bit about EPower. I know that you guys are in the graphite world, and first of all, full disclosure, I know graphite, you find it in pencils.
You do? Yeah.
Golf clubs.
Yeah.
And hockey sticks. But there's another use for graphite, which is a really important right now.
Yes.
So, and it's all about batteries. So you just tell me a little bit about EPower and what brought you guys to graphite and go look at their properties.
Okay. Yeah, well, we got started with this company back in October of 2018. Okay. My business partner has a lot of investors who follow him and do his deals, and he, what they said to him basically was, what can we do in electric vehicles or electric vehicle batteries in the resources space? So we got to work looking at the different material components of a battery and trying to determine which of those components would experience a supply crisis soonest, if any. And at the time, the conclusion we came to was graphite. So we formed the company back then in 2018, really started raising the money around January of 19, and found our flagship property. I think it was in April of 19. And what attracted us to graphite was the supply and demand situation. If you look at a single electric vehicle battery, it for a normal 4-passenger sized car, you need 75 to 100 kilos of graphite to make that battery. So those heavy batteries you see in electric vehicles, maybe 40% of that weight is graphite. And it forms nearly the entire anode side of the battery. The other side, the cathode side, is the metals. So and if you look at the metals on the cathode side, different companies making different batteries will rotate those metals or change those metals up as they make a new innovation in batteries. But one thing that's always constant is the graphite in the anode side of the battery. So the demand is going to be, a lot of the demand will be driven by the growth in the battery market. And electric vehicles are certainly a big driver of that. It's estimated that in 10 years, the world's going to require 4 times as much graphite production as there is today. And on the supply side, you look at graphite, and about 3/4 of it comes from China. And then thereafter, you've got Mozambique, Madagascar, and India, and a little bit comes from Brazil as well. So you take the top 5 producing countries, all of which are pretty far away from all the manufacturing capacity around batteries being erected in North America and Europe. And there just isn't enough to go around in the world, enough graphite production. So North America, for instance, has one producing graphite mine. It's in Quebec, of course, and it's a pretty small one. It produces less than 1% of global supply, and
that's Nouveau Monde, right?
Actually, that's Northern Graphite.
Northern Graphite,
right?
Okay,
yeah.
but I know there's other companies like Nouveau Monde Graphite. What's the difference between Nouveau Monde Graphite's play and Northern Graphite?
Well, Northern Graphite has a couple of, I guess you'd call it, exploration and development companies, but also we're able to buy the Lac des Îles mine,
Okay.
which is in western Quebec. And it is the only producing graphite mine in all North America. So the U.S. has no production. Canada has that one. And Europe is really in the same boat. There's one producing mine in Norway, and again, producing less than 1% of global supply, and that's about it. So
That's insane. That's insane because the thing that just the hook there, I think, and most people fail to recognize is, in the EV battery world, it's like I call it like, bread making 101. There's flavors. Oh, okay. Oh, it's lithium. Oh, it's now we're using this other mix. Oh, there's even some say, oh, okay, well, there's even some silver components, this and that. But the base necessary component to make it is graphite.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about it. Like they'll talk about phosphor or that. Oh, those are all on there, and we're going to be missing X amount of phosphate in X amount of years. But graphite, it's still not being voiced.
Right. You don't hear much talk about it. Like if you hear Elon Musk talking, he's publicly said it should be called, rather than lithium ion, it should be called the nickel graphite battery, because that's really most of the battery. But if you hear him talk about securing raw materials, he always talks about nickel.
Yeah.
And never mentions graphite. Don't know why that is.
Is it because the way maybe it's a commodity that can't be affected by news? Because from our brief discussions previously, it's not like any commodity that you could trade, like gold, it's silver, copper. Their price fluctuates. But graphite, it goes on the price is according to the purity, and so there's a scale that's not the same. It's not on the market.
Yeah, it's not. There's no spot market for graphite, so and it's technically not really a commodity. If you've got gold, it's just gold, and you can't really distinguish, is this gold from Tanzania or is it from Chile or something like that.
Okay.
But with graphite, there's another element to it. So we don't call it a commodity. We just call it a material.
Oh, okay.
And all graphite isn't created equal. So, and you have two basic types of graphite. One is amorphous graphite, which is what you get in that pencil.
Okay.
It's and if you pick it up off the ground, it's like an oily and powdery substance. And that's really what you'd call the low end of graphite. When you get into more specialized uses, the users are generally looking for flake graphite, which is, if you look at, first it has more the character of a rock rather than an oily powder.
Okay.
If you pick it up, and it looks like a pile of Frisbees if you look at it closely. So generally, the larger the flake size in a deposit, the better price you're going to get for the graphite. And so every deposit, it will have a combination of, the low end and the high end, and you get what's called a flake size distribution. So it adds another layer of complexity that you don't get in gold, where it's just, say, grams per ton.
And just not to go too technical, but I know gold, okay, there's an extraction process, and then you have to clean it up, and then there's, you have to remove the impurities, and then there's various level of grade. So there's a heavy transformation to gold and silver. Is that the same case with graphite, or is it a little bit more simplified just by you've already know that, okay, well, this is the more powdery form. This is the premium graphite. So is it less complex and less costly to treat?
Generally, graphite's extracted by flotation. You just crush it and float it. And some graphites might even be, or some graphite deposits might be soft rock.
Okay.
But ours would be more hard rock. So it would, you'd have blasting, and then you would take the material and you'd crush it and then float it. And it's reasonably easy to come up with a high purity concentrate. You can get in the 90% range. And then if an electric vehicle battery manufacturer wants graphite to make anodes, what they'll do is they'll put that graphite through their anode manufacturing process, and that purifies it to a more extreme level, more than 99%.
So it's the end user that does the transformation to their needs.
It is, yes.
Okay, that's another layer that is outside of the general mining world, is because, let's face it, producers, juniors, they eventually become producers. Well, they produce, they extract the ore, then they send it off to be, to the mill, and then after that, it goes to the foundry, and then after that, it goes to somebody else that makes something with it to be sold for something else.
Right. Yeah.
So there's like a layer, there's like a big middle part that's just out when it comes to graphite, because you do the flotation, and after that you find the company that wants to purchase your graphite, and then
graphite concentrate, and they'll turn it into whatever they want to use it for. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So it skirts. It's like it's a raw material that skirts the traditional mineralized world of mining.
Yeah, it's a little bit different in that sense, and many exploration companies in the graphite business have drifted downstream. So we're upstream. We're in exploration and development. We intend to stay upstream. What some companies did was, all right, we've got graphite in the ground, and but we want to capture the next link in the supply chain, which is turning that graphite into anode material. And we're trying to stay away from that.
Yeah.
And just be a source of graphite, and ideally while it still sits in the ground, rather than going into mining or calling our investors and saying, all right, we need $800 million for CapEx now.
Yeah, no, that's a reality. And that's also, I guess, it's that type of material that is graphite that you don't have to, and correct me if I'm wrong, the proving stage is shorter. It's not like your typical your gold plays. You gotta do a lot of heavy lifting, a lot of heavy work. You gotta prove the resources till you get X amount of millions of ounces, and then maybe a company like Glencore or another big player is going to look at you and be like, okay, I'll buy you. It's not the same for graphite.
Well, I don't think it is the same. And the reason for that is, if you prove up a gold deposit, you show how it can be extracted in a cost-efficient manner, transported and all that, and all the numbers are good. And you really, hope a major comes in and wants to add your project to their portfolio. But they don't really have to. They could just say, my life's okay. I don't really need it. And with graphite, because there are only about 10 notable graphite projects in North America of any decent enough size that could actually make an impact in the supply deficit that's looming and looming fast. And the continent probably needs 40 of those, and there are only 10. So it's a little bit different situation, because we know you need to buy this deposit eventually. You may not know it yet, but we know you need to buy graphite while it still sits in the ground. And they're not quite there yet where they've realized that, or taken a lot of concrete steps. And when we started the company, it was all about our hypothesis, or our thesis, I guess, was manufacturers who need graphite for their production process will need to buy it while it's still sitting in the ground, because there's just not enough above ground. So we're going to see the manufacturers own these projects. And for a few years, from 2019 till this year, that hadn't happened yet. And but this year it did.
Okay.
And that's when simultaneously General Motors, Mitsui, and Panasonic took what's essentially a controlling interest in our immediately adjacent neighbor, Nouveau Monde Graphite.
That's the deal.
So, yeah.
And that's funny that you mentioned that, because that deal, and like I'll be honest, changed the whole nature of Nouveau Monde. They were no longer explorers. They were no longer no. You guys are now committed, because
Right.
They inadvertently invited Big Brother into their table, and Big Brother's going like, you gotta do it.
Right. And that's, you could even say, they're a partially owned subsidiary of those three manufacturers. I mean, they might not agree with that, but
and that's how you read on the market. Whoever owns the most shares, a big controlling block. He's at the end of the day is the guy that could pick up the phone and be like, so, and this is trading talk, but if I own enough shares in a company and I don't like the way it's going, I can call the president and be like, well, here are your options. You course correct towards where I want to go.
Right.
Or, pardon the language, I'm going to short the shit out of you.
Right.
It's dirty, but that's the world of, and when you're playing players like that, those are big boys. They got more firepower than you could ever imagine.
Yeah, and I don't see anything wrong with them having done that deal. That's why they got into the game, to do that deal. But Nouveau Monde controls 2 of those 10 notable, sizable projects in North America. So now those are effectively controlled by Panasonic, General Motors, and Mitsui. Yeah. So now there are 8, and ours is one of them. As...
You got precedent.
Right, yes. And, now there are only 8, so maybe there's more of a sense of urgency around those manufacturers securing it in the ground.
So if I had to ask, and, your dream scenario would be I don't think you want to be approached by one of those producers, by one of those manufacturers. You want to be approached by a bigger company that's in the mining world, that's in the graphite world, like Nouveau Monde, or like somebody to be like, okay, we'll pick you guys up. Actually,
it could be either one.
Yeah. Okay. So you're not.
Yeah.
I like that.
It could be either one. Like if one of those industrial players says, all right, we want that one, that's fine for us. And, we don't ever have to go into mining.
Okay.
We don't have to, even do a PEA or anything. They'll do that, I'm sure, once they own the project. So, in an ideal situation, we might even be able to take the project and parcel off bits of it. Like, okay, Mercedes-Benz wants this one, and Volkswagen wants this one, and really have one large property, but turn it into maybe a few. At the moment, our market cap is so low, they might just say, let's just buy the whole company. But so now, and it could also be a situation where, one of the players, like a Nouveau Monde, says, we actually probably don't need any more graphite. We've got enough for our paymasters at the moment. But we could take control of your project and just hold on to it and make sure the other industrial players can't get to it, because they're all building these, $5 billion plus factories. And those aren't going to manufacture electric vehicle batteries, and those won't produce anything unless they can secure graphite. So but that's what I like. That's what I like about hearing CEOs like yourself that are like thinking, they're flexible in their thinking, because if I'm an investor, if I'm somebody that's looking to put some cash into a junior play, I know it's risky. That's the nature of mining and junior exploration. It's a risky play. But one of the things I hate hearing is meeting CEOs that are rigid. No, I'm doing this and I'm bringing it there and this and that. No, I want to hear a CEO that has flexibility, that's going like, well, my number one worry or thing that I think about is how much can I bring extra value to my shareholders? And I'm not going to say no to a deal that makes sense if the number's there for my shareholders, because
you're probably a shareholder yourself. So you're not going to be thinking about, chopping down your, taking away money from yourself. You're going to be like, okay, well, this is the amount of work that would needed. You're going to do all the quantifiables and be like, this is a good deal or this is a shitty deal. But you're going to consider it.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this isn't a career. EPower is not a career for me. Like, and I'm not going to be one of the, I don't want to be that guy out there. Oh, we're going to take it all the way into production and we're going to be the $1 billion company.
See, I like that. Again, that's another thing I like. That's a CEO of a junior exploration that knows we all have limitations, in the sense that to have an exploration company is to be, it's having that entrepreneurial mentality of like, I'm going to go prove it up and then hopefully find somebody that's better suited, that their whole business is running projects on a larger scale, because that's a different scale set.
It is.
Skill set. So but you see, again, I hear CEOs who are going like, no, we're going to bring it all the way to operation. I'm going like, well, that's not the same bag of tricks.
No, and that's a career rather than a, I don't know if we should use the word flip, but the only reason we got into this is to get out of this, with more than we arrived.
But that's not a dirty word for an investor. If we do it all the time, people, well, less now, but when it was, when real estate was cheap, people would flip houses. It made sense.
Yeah, right.
As an investment, that's okay. And so the idea of people buying all these houses and flipping, that was okay. They weren't building real estate empires. They were like, no, I'm going to take a property, work it up, make it prettier, flip it, make profit. That's the same thing, because you got in the world of juniors, it's real estate at a certain point is proving up the value of the real estate.
Yeah, and maybe we don't even have to finish proving it up in order to, monetize. We've put together what I consider a beautiful land package that we could never do again. We did it in 2000, a lot of it in 2019, some in 2020, and that'll never happen again because there's too much attention.
Eyeballs now.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's not going to happen. And the idea behind, being in graphite was to deploy as little as possible to capture one essential link in their supply chain. And whenever there's one tiny missing link, they throw some money at it and grab that link. And the idea is we walk away with the money. And so we're not looking to do so much work on the property, because we could, assuming the markets are there, we could go out and raise millions to drill up, a mega resource. And as many of our, or not many, but a few of our neighbors have done, but they've done it years ago. So, and nobody cared thus far. But we feel as though we're doing enough work to show this is clearly one of those 10, and a pretty good one too. And it sits right next to what is already known as the very best graphite deposit in North America.
So yeah, no, that's you see, that's a good play. And how much is like, I'm going to shift a little conversation a little bit more towards the current markets. I don't want to dwell too much on that, because, everybody's been talking, I think it's been the past 3 years, everybody's been depressed about the market, and how the natural resources sectors has been depreciated, even though there's been lots of push from governments, lots of, goodwill, and all that. Do you feel that you guys, like, just because of the nature of the material, you're slightly excluded from that? Or do investors look at your company and it's like, oh, it's mining?
Yeah. I guess we're not excluded at the moment. I mean, it's the sector in general has extreme low share prices. And the sector in general, I mean, North American graphite. The share prices are at extreme lows, really across the board. All our comparables, really, everybody's down there. Now, in maybe a different market, we are somewhat exempt, because do you call us a mining play, or you could twist it around and say it's a green energy play. Y'all like batteries? Well, you need graphite, and that's it. And and natural graphite is a whole lot better for the environment and much cheaper than synthetic graphite. So
okay, so I thought there is synthetic graphite, and what's the cost of that? Because that's what it sounds like. Oh, we can make it in a lab, and then you got to do the math. It's going like, what's the cost of making it, the resale, and also is it? You're doing this for green energy, but it's going like
right.
By the inception, you're already creating X amount of waste.
Right. So, and that's a interesting question, because, I mean, just to explain what synthetic graphite is and what it comes from, there's graphite that already sits in the ground. There's also synthetic graphite, which is made from other carbon-based things. And there are two of those things. One is petroleum coke, which comes from an oil refinery. So you need an oil refinery to make synthetic graphite.
Okay.
And it's a byproduct of oil refineries. Or you can use coal tar. So, means you've got to have some coal, and that's mining. So then you take this, the carbon that is currently coal tar or petroleum coke, and you subject it to extreme heat and pressure.
Okay.
Something the Earth has already done to the carbon that's sitting in the natural graphite that's already in the ground.
Okay.
So the Earth has to cook the stuff under extreme pressure. But with natural graphite, the Earth did that already.
Yeah.
So it's already cooked.
It's the reverse of diamonds.
It's just like diamonds because they're carbon-based.
Reverse, because the lab diamonds are cheaper, but no, in this case, the natural graphite is cheaper than making it with all the steps in the labs and all that. So
it is, and you don't have to subject it to that extreme heat and pressure. Like if you think of 75 to 100 kilos in a single battery. That means you've got to start with the petroleum coke and cook and pressurize that, let's call it 100 kilos. But how many batteries are you going to make? Multiply that, and you've got a big pizza oven, right? So, that's just an analogy, but it's you've got to do things to the carbon to come up with that. And with natural graphite, you don't have to. Now, the natural graphite has to meet the characteristics required by the anode material manufacturer or other user, whoever it is. So natural graphite for one manufacturer coming from one place may not work, but this other natural graphite does work. Yeah, it has the right characteristics.
You adjust according to what you extract. And to the potential buyer, says, okay, this is the mix. This is the mix that I need. That's for that company. So you got leeway,
and that's what we're trying to do. Actually, like we took some, we took a ton from 4 different target areas on the property, and then each of those tons gets analyzed for, grade, of course, but flake size distribution as well, and then we ask a manufacturer what he's looking for. So we can really send him material from what is the most appropriate target we took the graphite from. So if you need, call it fine flake graphite to make a battery, and one manufacturer says, we want this mesh number. And, that might be, that's really maybe not necessarily even the highest end graphite we have. So we can send him from target number 1 rather than the really good stuff from target number 3. And hopefully he looks at our graphite from target number 1, which we're getting processed right now, and says, yeah, this works. And then we can go about drilling out, a resource sufficient to meet the needs of that particular manufacturing customer. And if it's not huge, maybe it can even be done under bulk sampling rules rather than, and from surface too. So we're talking about target areas where the graphite's right there. You can just go over and kick it. And so that could lead to small amounts of revenue generation that, help fund the exploration, reduce dilution, while we wait for the big one.
That's another thing I like so far, like thinking, if you have a possibility to create some form of revenue, it's a great way. And I've heard a lot of different CEOs come up with different ideas, and to create revenue. And shareholders, it's not traditional, but that's where you should go. It shouldn't be, people are like, oh, well, exploration it's all deficit. Yeah, but that doesn't mean you can't think outside of the box. And right now, you have to. And
Yeah,
it's actually, I find companies that think like that, it shows that management is industrious. It's not just solely sitting on the value of their land. It's like, no, I gotta make sure that my company, I show the worth of my company to my shareholders. And if I can say, well, through all these various side activities, we were able to make $200K. Mm-hmm. Well, that's $200K I put back right in the company.
Yeah.
Shareholder,
and how many shares didn't we print? Yes.
And the shareholder will be like, well, that's awesome because you didn't go to the street.
Right.
So, no, that's amazing. You know what, James? This has been a really interesting conversation in the sense that, I've learned a lot just by the graphite world because it's a little bit outside of the traditional companies that we see here, and it's super enlightening. So, thanks a lot for stopping by.
Well, thanks. Good to be here.
Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and comment down below what you thought of the video. Don't forget to watch our latest video right over there. Click it, come on, I know you want to. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye guys!